Nature alone is antique, and the oldest art, a mushroom. Today's guest is the co founder of Nuvedo, a mushroom lover's haven. She's a philosophy graduate who changed careers and decided to enroll in a permaculture course after discovering the therapeutic and healing benefits of mushrooms, as well as wanting to start a startup that was more aligned to her values. She facilitated in the founding of two startups in the cybersecurity and bioengineering sectors before shifting her focus to her passion for mushrooms. To know more about Nuvedo, cultivating mushrooms, and her journey, please help me welcome Prithvi Kini. Hi, Prithvi. Namaste.
Hi, Amrita. Namaste to you too. Super happy to be here. Very excited.
I am excited to have you on the Unsettling podcast. Why is it called Namaste? Is it?
Yeah, I mean it's just a take on Namaste, of course.
Uh-huh.
But if a fellow mushroom lover was going to greet another one, it would be Namaste.
Ah, oh, makes
So
sense.
yeah, I guess that makes two mushroom enthusiasts in both of us.
Yes. So I just want to know, from philosophy to bioengineering, cybersecurity, and now Nuvedo, how has the journey been so far?
So, well, it's been a lot of like learning and unlearning, I would say. I think what I guess coming from a philosophy background, and I chose that quite willingly when I was at the crossroads of high school, having to probably go into engineering or medicine or law. These were the three options that were
Yeah.
proposed to me. But I think why I also chose philosophy was because I genuinely felt like it gave me a new landscape to be to open up and I guess choose from various things that I possibly didn't really want to choose at that time.
Mhm.
And it gives you like a framework to learn and unlearn. And I think, of course, now we talk about unlearning and all of that, but when you actually truly study so many schools of thought, you learn about life in itself. I guess it gives you that opportunity to say, um, you know go out there, be brave, see what you have, and absorb everything that you can in the most sincere way possible. Because
Mhm.
the I guess one of the fundamental things about philosophy is to say that in that moment you believe that what you are debating or what you are learning about is real. So and then you proceed, right? So whether it was bioengineering or cybersecurity, moving in from that into cybersecurity was about saying, look, I have a new blank slate in front of me and I have all the opportunity to learn and flood my brains into those patterns and those understandings of what it could be. So
Mhm.
I think it kind of also tells you that, I guess, at the end of everything, I mean, no matter if you're a scientist, or if you're a journalist, or you're a doctor, there is philosophy at the end of everything, right? Some of the greatest scientists as well were philosophers, because that creates no boundaries, that creates no barriers of learning. So I think the journey has been a lot of up learning, unlearning,
Mhm.
deconstructing, coming back. But I think working in a startup space, like from the beginning, I think I decided that I wanted to be in small organizations, because that's when you can actually, put in your ideas,
Yeah.
see them through, understand the impact, and actually create value out of it. So the journey to Nuvedo was inevitable, I would say. I don't see any other way to it. But I think it also has brought me back to a place that I personally also feel very strongly about: nature, food. I'm also a yoga teacher, by the way. I do
Yeah.
that from some 5 to 9 in the morning. And I think
Yeah.
all these things kind of culminated in a space where I think I was able to say, this modality of science in mycology seems very interesting to me. It's challenging, and it has a lot of like esoteric parts to it that have also taken me back to my science education in high school, but also has kind of brought a newness to everything. So I think the journey has been very interesting.
Right.
And like I said, it's inevitable. I think when you go into tech and you see the deep end of cybersecurity, like, so when, by the way, so cybersecurity, I was in something in a field of quantum physics.
Yeah, yeah.
So where you actually are looking at even the fundamental, atom of life, or you're looking at light as to a duality. So I think when you see all of that, and at the end of the day, you're saying, okay, all this is great, tech is amazing, and at the end of it, you have to eat, you have to survive, you have to do things that will perhaps create value in this world. And
Right.
I think for me, food, and also looking at nature in a very like deconstructed way was very interesting in mycology. So I think
That's how
inevitably
it
has
was.
landed.
Oh,
Yeah.
so I think everything was interconnected, right? It started with a thought, then you learned how to break down things when it came to quantum physics, and then you
Yeah.
went into yoga. You learned the meaning of life. Now you came into mushrooms and tried to connect everything. So yeah, it's been a journey. And yes, I was about to ask you that you chose philosophy despite having those three typical options out there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's a plus, yes.
I mean, I think I was very firm about it because I saw my entire batch, do the engineering
Yeah,
MBA route or medical, blah blah, the usual
correct.
stuff that.
Mhm.
And I said, are you serious? Is this the only options that we have? I mean, I refuse to believe it. So I think I think that was one of the best decisions I perhaps have taken in my life so far. The rest are a consequence of that, but I think a lot of what I have done is because of that,
Oh yeah,
system,
I
especially at that age.
correct.
Because I mean, as you grow older, you figure out and you're like, yeah, yeah, But at that age, you have to say that I don't want to do these things.
Correct.
So yeah.
That's definitely a plus. I agree. I saw philosophy and I'm like, oh my God, that's actually different. And you took that decision back then. Mind blowing. So I wanted to know why mushrooms? Like, why not anything else? What got you interested in researching about mushrooms?
Right. So I think, of course, like I said, I was interested in like natural ecosystems, and I went on to do a permaculture design course, and I was
Mhm.
interested in like growing food and looking at them like more at a macro level.
Hmm.
But I think at the core, I mean, while that was, brewing, at the core of it, mushrooms were there, right? They were around, and they had this very esoteric aspect to it where they don't fit any buckets. They are not necessarily, they don't behave like plants.
Hmm.
They're not part of the animal kingdom. People have very mixed views about it. There seem to be a lot of like, a mystery around it, right? So
Yeah.
that's what actually piqued my interest. I said, why are these guys so unique? What makes them different? They started cultivating them, started looking at them more like on a, as a nutritious source.
Mhm.
And I think, I mean, just to, while I said, these are all the like the good things about them, they may feed you, but at the end of the day, they also do a bunch of other things. They can kill you too.
Yeah.
They have, they can clothe you, because a lot of the materials that come from mushrooms are, now used as sustainable sources of, um, a material, and they have a lot of healing properties that people don't know about. So
Correct.
I think there were many things about it. I wouldn't say just one thing, but I think they are, in a philosophical sense, if I have to answer that, they're like a bridge between life and death.
Mhm.
They are fungi, they grow on decaying
Correct.
organic matter, but they're also there
Mhm.
at the beginning and end of life. So I think all these things said and done, when you look at the entire thing, there was this very interesting aspect of their entire life cycle and evolution, and unspoken about benefits, if I want to
Mhm.
call it that. I think that's what really piqued me to get into it deeper and say, let's go down this rabbit hole. And I guess it was a rabbit hole. I haven't moved out of it, but it's it's still, like, I would say every day is a new discovery, and there's so much to learn. It doesn't end. There's so many kinds of mushrooms. There are so many kinds of ways to look at it, ways to cultivate. And in a country like India, with so many people being protein deficient,
Mhm.
and like it's a very wonderful source of nutrition that we can actually look at.
Correct.
Surprisingly, also, this was a phase when the COVID, thing was going on, and all of this pandemic stuff. from a post-apocalyptic, say we were to all die, or like there were just few people left on the planet, it's a wonderful way to actually grow food, because
Yeah.
they don't require much sunlight. They can be grown indoors. They grow on materials that would otherwise be considered waste. For example, they can grow on predominantly anything, which I probably will get to in a bit. But all these things, so there's this, like, I guess it's a very integrative like perspective on how I've looked at mushrooms, and that's why they seem to be a space which I love to be a part of right now. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely that's how.
Yeah, I've actually like I was reading about it. This is the first time I got interested in mushrooms because like
Right,
honestly, to be honest, we don't make mushrooms at home. No one does in my
right.
family. And then when I read about it, I was very surprised that one, it is protein dense, it helps with a lot of diseases as well. And at the same time, as you said, it is easier to grow and cultivate at home by yourself if you are trained enough. A little, like, you require minimal training to grow it as well. So,
At least for, yeah, I mean, for the most basic ones, it's very easy.
yeah,
So you don't have to think about it that, like, it's not ultra complicated. But like, having said that, there are like so many types of them, and each of them
correct.
require their own. Yeah. So,
When I went down the rabbit hole, is what I was trying to say. That I was reading, and I'm like,
right,
oh, this is never ending.
right.
So I understand where you came from. So, as I was saying, that there's a lot to know about mushrooms. There are a lot of
Correct.
medicinal properties. So, can you tell the listeners about the same? Any particular type of mushroom that you would like to talk about?
Right. So, to answer this question, I think maybe I'll talk more from like a compound level, organic compound level, because a lot of mushrooms have different properties. There are, different ways in which they can heal you. But so predominantly, there are a lot of active compounds that are, there in the mushroom, but there are three, core ingredient or like compounds, organic compounds that we speak about when we talk about medicinal mushrooms. The
Mm.
first being polysaccharides.
Okay.
These essentially help in immunomodulating effects in our body. And say someone's immune system is, very for I say it's underactive, it needs
Mhm.
to be boosted, or someone has a very hyperactive immune system that needs to come down, say a lot of allergies. So this helps in modulating. It's not just going to boost it, it's going to bring a very intense immune system low and a very weak immune system high, so it
Right.
creates this set of balance in the body. So this
Mm.
is what polysaccharides do. And interestingly, a mushroom, a lot of the anti-cancer properties that are there in mushrooms are from these polysaccharides, beta glucans to be specific. So
Okay.
that's one. The
Mhm.
second is terpenes. These are another class of compounds. These compounds help with the central nervous system. For example, your anxiety, sleep, things that are responsible for your nervous system to just kind of either calm down or, get, aroused. So um, lion's mane mushroom, we have actually a mushroom growing kit on that. It's this white fluffy, not fluffy, but like thread like mushroom that has been known to help nerve cells grow back. It's one of
Okay.
the only few compounds present in nature that actually can help nerve cells grow back. And a lot of dementia and Alzheimer's patients are now using this mushroom, for cognitive and other, functions. So this is the terpenes. And the third class of compounds that I would like to talk about is phenolics. So
Mhm.
phenolics are, like, you can think of them as antioxidant
Okay.
or anti-inflammatory aiding molecules. They help with anti-aging, skin radiance, basically remove all the free radicals, in your body. And if you do, look at phenolics, it's basically present almost in all mushrooms, but
Mhm.
it can be tapped into, and these are the properties that people look at while, trying to cultivate. Of course,
Right.
apart from these three, very high in dietary fiber, really good for the gut. Like, one of the big properties is, if you're looking for more fiber in your diet, mushrooms are really good for that. And I think one of the things that I personally feel is that as a protein source, so suppose you're a vegetarian and you obviously you don't eat eggs or I think there are a lot of essential amino acids that you lose because you don't eat these meat
Mm.
sources, right?
Right.
So mushrooms actually have a lot of these amino acids that give you a complete protein, nutritious source. So this is like, I mean, I want to say just perhaps 10% of, or like, okay, fine, not 10%, but 30% of some of the medicinal properties. And within each mushroom, there are a bunch of different properties that, they're used for. So, I mean, long story short is that they're really good for you. And they also have, each mushroom has its own unique value. It's
Okay.
like if you were to eat just button mushroom,
Mm-hmm.
you're perhaps eating just the potato of the vegetable kingdom.
Okay.
I mean, the vegetable, section. It's like saying you're just eating potato. You haven't eaten a beetroot. You haven't eaten palak. You haven't explored all the other vegetables that you have. So just like
Right.
that, in the fungi, in the mushroom space,
Hmm.
a button mushroom is just one kind of mushroom. There are so many types, and there are wonderful ways to eat them, cook them. So yeah.
Oh, nice. And the medicinal properties that you spoke of, this is just by just eating it normally, right? Cooking and eating. You don't have to kind of extract their properties in any way.
Yeah, so good question. I mean, of course, some of them you can just eat, like I said, lion's mane, shiitake mushroom,
Mhm.
a lot of the oyster varieties. These you can just eat. There are some mushrooms that you can't just eat. You have to
Okay.
extract it and get some of these properties, and that's why also people, don't know or don't have access to. And that's something we're doing also at Nuvedo, where we're working on extracts for some of these mushrooms that people would have otherwise not had access to.
Mhm.
So, yeah, good
Oh,
question.
okay. Right. So, what is the story behind the name Nuvedo?
Okay. So, fungi have been around, right, for
Right.
a long, long time. They were there before we existed. They'll continue to be there, whether Amrita or I are, in this earth. But the idea is that we're not, it's not that we're doing something extraordinary. We're just bringing a new perspective to
Mhm.
something that has been around for a very long time. So new plus Vedo. So it's like new Vedo. So a new perspective to something which has been around for really, really long. It's just, it's,
Mhm.
it's traditional knowledge. It's things that have, been there in the past. And we're just providing a new perspective on something that already exists. So
Okay.
also comes from the root word naivedyam, of food of the
Ah,
gods.
right, right.
So yeah, so that's, we started with Naivedyam and then we transitioned into, we wanted to have something with that kind of
Oh, yeah. It's like
amalgam.
got a zazzy name as well.
So yeah,
Oh,
that's
that's
how it goes.
okay. So, as you said, you help people cultivate as well, cultivate mushrooms as well.
Yeah,
So, can you tell us about the process of cultivating mushrooms and the kind of grow kits that you offer?
right. So, when you're cultivating in a lab, it has 4 steps to it. But what we do at the grow kit level is we give them the last step, so they don't have to do all the other steps that perhaps require certain infrastructure, certain environment, and things like that.
Hmm.
So the process is, mushroom cultivation literally starts with the mushroom itself. So
Correct.
you take a piece of mushroom and you put it in a nutritive medium like an agar, and you let it kind of form mycelium on that agar, so it's like a plate. And from that, so this is done in a lab under very sterile conditions. It has clean air. It has to, because the idea is you don't want other fungus to contaminate it,
Correct.
right?
Ah.
I mean, if COVID has taught us anything, it's definitely aided in the processes of mushroom cultivation. So you put it on a certain nutritive media. Once it grows, then you transfer it into a slightly more nutritious media, which
Mhm.
is, say, grains. Okay,
Okay.
grains. So this process is basically spawn or the mushroom seed. So it's gone from less nutrition to more nutrition, which is a grain, a
Mhm.
packet of grain, and then it kind of eats up all that nutrition, or it colonizes. The word is colonize. So it goes over that nutrition and
Mhm.
it stays there. So that's the spawn. That's a mushroom seed. Now, what you do is you take these little pieces of grain and you put it in a larger nutritious media like a substrate. So,
Okay.
substrate could be anything from wood to straw to paper to cardboard, and that depends on the mushroom. It depends on what the mushroom likes to eat. So, what you're doing is you're essentially feeding the mycelium at different stages, and then you're
Okay.
finally giving it at this final stage with this mix of nutrition, and that's what forms the grow kit. So you'll
Got it.
see that it's a kit, right? It has all the nutrition required for the
Uh-huh.
mycelium to grow, and
Mhm.
it's ready to produce mushroom. So at
Okay.
this stage, the mycelium has taken over and has absorbed all the nutrition, and
Mm-hmm.
it's ready to produce mushrooms. Once you give it the right condition, for example, you give it water, you open up the surface, it says, oh, okay, I have to produce mushroom now because I have all the nutrition, I'm ready, so I
Mm-hmm.
produce mushroom. That's essentially where we have the kids. And what we've tried to do is we've tried to make the whole process easy for people to actually cultivate mushrooms at home and
Mm-hmm.
have an easy, because one of the biggest things is convenience, right? People
Correct.
want to feel in life, people just want to be convenient for them. So the idea is that you reach a stage and then the kits are easy to put at home. All you have to do is spray water, and within like 10 to 15 days you'll have mushrooms growing from it depending on the mushroom.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's where the grow kits are. And the grow kits, we have, about now a various, like maybe 4 to 5 oyster varieties, and we have a lion's mane mushroom, which is one of the medicinal mushrooms.
Okay.
And these can be cultivated at home using this particular framework.
Mm-hmm.
Not all mushrooms can be cultivated using a grow kit.
Correct.
These are the ones that possibly can, but not all. So we try to give as many as can be cultivated for consumers, and make it easy. There
Mm-hmm.
are some obviously ultra enthusiastic, gardening people or like people who are into it. So
Mm-hmm.
we made these things called a DIY kit where they can do the whole thing themselves,
Oh,
and they can
nice.
get a large quantity of mushroom.
Right.
So suppose they said that, oh my God, the grow kit is giving me, fairly a small quantity. I want to have a large quantity. They can do it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We give them all the material, we give them the mushroom seed, and
Right.
then they put it together.
Okay.
So
It's
yeah, that's
yeah.
where it is.
So, like assuming I get a mushroom kit, how long will I be able to cultivate mushrooms using that kit? Duration?
Yeah, so so we guarantee one harvest,
Hmm.
but we've seen customers get like 5 harvests from the kit. For example, every 10 days or
Hmm.
every 15 days, it'll produce the next harvest.
Oh.
So, for example, obviously in summer when things are very dry, we see like maybe 2 harvests max. But during monsoon, we've seen like customers go up to 5 harvests. So the
Oh.
duration, you can think about it like that. From every say 10-day cycles, you'll get one flush of mushroom. You have to just harvest it from the kit
Hmm.
and eat it, and then again spray water. So then the second
Okay.
cycle starts.
Nice.
So
Also, I have one more question as a layman. So, so you said that you create this kit that is ready to go, right? And you just need to maybe open it up and spray water so that the mushrooms start growing. So, how long can
yeah,
you keep that in a dormant state, the kit?
right. So I think I can answer this a little differently. You
Hmm.
can keep it up to 2 months, two to
Right.
3 months, but maybe in a maybe weather like this,
Right.
like maybe now, right? In
Uh-huh.
India, it's right now, it's about like dry, and maybe summer is approaching in the south.
Hmm.
So you could keep it dormant. But if you keep it dormant like this in, say, monsoon,
Hmm.
it may just fruit inside.
Right.
So we've seen many customers who went on a holiday, and we've told them, like in monsoon, we tell them, look, guys, the conditions are very optimal for mushrooms to,
Hmm.
come out. Even if you
Right.
don't do anything, they might start to, push themselves out. So you can say in a humid climate, it would probably, not last that long. But say in this climate, you can keep it for about 2 months.
Okay. Okay. That answers all my questions for this one. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to ask you, why do you like what is the idea behind helping everyone grow mushrooms in their houses?
Right. One of the biggest points there is the shelf life. So
Right.
a lot of the mushrooms that, why do we not see those many mushrooms, right, in the market? It's because their shelf lives are so low that
Mm.
by the time you really package it and you send it to a departmental store or wherever, it's probably become squishy. People don't like the smell. It
Mm.
starts to become something that already is an association with fungus. Like
Right.
for example, I mean, a question is that a lot of people don't eat mushrooms because they think that it grows on decaying organic matter.
Mm.
It represents, something dirty.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the, the constructs that we have in our brains comprise of uh, um, things that we're told, right? Or conditioning that we are believed in.
Correct.
So to break a lot of those like biases and conditionings, and also what I we feel is mycophobia, like it's just random phobia which has a lot of irrational thought around it. We wanted people to start growing them at home so that they could understand them just like they would understand plants, or
Correct.
maybe they could just see them and see the process of what it takes. They see the nutrition, they see that they're just pouring water on it. It's completely organic. There's no chemical involved. There's nothing dirty about it. In fact, it's super sterile,
Correct.
if not, so that was one of the big reasons of making, ensuring that people would understand the organism better, so
Mhm.
growing them at home. And the second, like I said, is the shelf life.
Shelf life.
If you really want to taste mushrooms in a fresh, and like you want to actually feel the taste of it, the best way to do it is to actually grow them.
Mhm.
No matter what people may say about, getting mushrooms to you, it it's a fragile organism. By the end of the time, by the time it actually reaches you, it's probably not going to be as nice as it is. Which is why also a wonderful way to have them is, like, I mean, at least for, say, farms to give them to a store, is by dehydrating them. So if you
Mhm.
dehydrate them and you give them, and people then can also consume them in
For
a,
longer.
in a different way.
Right.
So these 2 points, and of course I think the last point would also be that to create a network of people who have an appreciation of fungi, and build different um, perspectives on how they grow in our climate. For
Mhm.
example, today we're predominantly only growing button mushrooms, not
Correct.
because it's easy, not because it's, not because it's just because it was the first mushroom that was ever cultivated in India. And that's, it's like a chicken and egg story, right? So people build big factories, and then they started flooding the market with button mushrooms. But
Mhm.
that's not necessarily the easiest way. And a lot of the technology and the innovations that have come in the mushroom space globally have been from people growing them like you and me. Or like,
Correct.
if you were to start growing mushrooms, maybe you'll find something that I didn't know about, and
Mhm.
working with ingredients that are available locally to you. So I think all these factors put together is one of the very big reasons we wanted people to grow them.
Mhm.
And of course, I think, okay, one more point. I think one more reason is because um, why should Nuvedo do everything, right? Like, for example, why not get more people to get into it and create a network? So, a good way to actually have people feel empowered about their own food is by making them grow it.
Right.
And if you have control over that, then I think you have control over a lot of things in your life. So
Mm.
philosophically, that way, I think it's a big thing of what we do at Nuvedo. We want to integrate more people and have a large community of people working together,
Mhm.
rather than just one person being at the helm of, mushroom cultivation. So I think, yeah, that's a bit about where we stand on that.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so this is actually very interesting to know that, I thought that is the first thought that came to my head, because when I remember mushrooms coming into the market and people buying them and cooking them, my mom had this very idea that you told me, that it's growing on decay. So why should we, eat mushrooms? Her first thought was, we used to see them while playing, right, in the gardens and parks. So she always keeps telling me, is that mushroom that they're using in food, that the ones that grow near the
Right.
parks? We can't eat all that. So yeah, it definitely helps to know where it comes from, and to know the medicinal properties, and to know more about mushrooms, so that we can actually break the stereotypes and the mentality, and get more people on board. So I wanted to ask you, like, as you said, you have a particular setup where you create these
Right.
grow kits, and there's like a lab environment in which you set this up. Is it possible for maybe people to just grow it from scratch in another environment at home, without the grow kits? Is that a thing?
So people can grow at home for
Mhm.
sure if they have substrate, but they still need the mushroom seeds, right, or the spawn.
The spawn. Okay.
So that the manufacturing of spawn requires a very sterile environment. It has
Uh-huh.
to be sterile. But once they have the seeds or the spawn, they can grow it at home. I
Right.
mean, they just have to maintain certain protocols, and that's something to teach in our mushroom cultivation workshops, where
Right.
we tell them, the do's and don'ts, the ways to do that, and I think that's very much doable. In fact, we have a large, community of our customers who actually buy spawn from us on a regular basis, and they have their own farms, they have their own setups, and they are growing mushrooms on a large scale. So we supply to many farms across India, for example, in Hyderabad, in Bangalore, and you just have to, they just need the seed. But to manufacture the seed, you require very sterile environment. So
Right.
we do have a lab, and we do have all the, the protocols in place and things like that. But
Mhm.
to actually grow at home, and if you were someone who just wanted to set up a small mini farm in your, say, your backyard or something, it's very much doable. It's not that it's inaccessible and it's, very high tech, none of that. But you just have to know the parameters, you have to understand the temperatures, you have to understand the mushroom.
Right.
So the best way to learn about this is actually putting your hands into it and learning about the mushroom itself, because
Mhm.
every mushroom requires different
Right.
conditions, requires different tech. Tech is one word to put it, but for example, like the mediums on which mushrooms grow, they could be something from sawdust to straw to any organic matter. Basically, they need a carbon and a nitrogen source,
Okay.
and a permutation or a recipe of that is what will give it a good yield. So yeah, I think it's very much something that people can do, and it's not very, it doesn't require a grow kit. I mean, of course the grow kit is a convenient way,
Right.
but you can definitely do it from scratch.
Oh yeah. So it's like, is it as complicated as growing plants? Because I understand that there are trials and errors, and sometimes you might kill the plant. So does that happen with mushrooms as well?
Yeah, I think everything is a process, and you will fail. I think you have to fail once to know that what you made you can't succeed always. I
Right.
mean, we hope that people will succeed always, but assume that you might fail once, because that failure will teach you a lot about your own environment. And that's something that I can't tell you sitting in Bangalore, but you have to actually grow it and see, okay, are my windows clean? Is there
Mhm.
some air outlet that's bringing in some contamination? Why is all my bags getting contaminated? So, yeah, failure is inevitable. And I think the minute we accept that, I think that's when things get interesting, because we're okay to fail. We're
Right.
okay to fail once and say, these are the things that perhaps made a issue in my
Right.
process, and now I have the knowledge to take it forward. So yeah, plants also, I think plants, so the thing about mushrooms is they don't require sunlight,
Mhm.
which is a good thing compared to plants, because in plants, different plants, you have to really make sure that they don't dry up.
Mhm.
You're putting enough cocoa peat, things like that. Here, once you make that recipe bag
Mhm.
and you give it humidity, it'll produce. The
Right.
only thing you'll have to worry about is if your area is not clean.
Mhm.
But in plants, some plants, you have to move them around, they
Yeah.
dry up, or so sunlight is not an issue. Like you don't have to worry about sunlight at all. So
Mhm.
that is where I guess the success factor becomes a little higher.
Right.
So yeah,
So how many trials and errors did you have to go through before, you
a
fine-tuned
lot.
Nuvedo?
A lot. I mean, we've gone from, so of course, when we first started, we were doing it in the house, and we had like a full room allocated to this, a bathroom, all of that. Started from like cutting the straw with scissors,
Oh.
making a mess with the hands being all contaminated, and going through, maybe like once we've probably, while we were in the process, may have spoken and like, or like touched something, and then the bags got contaminated, but you only find out 3 weeks later.
Uh-huh.
So you have to throw like 15 bags or like 20 bags. So I mean, I guess I have had my fair share, let's say, of failure.
Mhm.
But I think that's when we were like, oh, we need to have a facility, a lab. We need to make sure that all these things are put in place. And this is all, of course, when we were just, trying out the cultivation process before Nuvedo officially started.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it's a process, and I think you learn the most from actually being with the organism, actually working with the organism. That's when you understand its quirks, its behavior, what it does in these situations. So yeah, a lot of failure, but I think failure is good. I think it
Yeah.
always teaches you something. So,
I guess it helped you fine-tune this now. Now you're like experts in the field, so.
right. So
Okay, so
I would actually not use the word expert, because I feel like I said, we all call ourselves just amateurs because there's so much to learn. It's
Mhm.
very it's still a space which is still evolving. So we're still learning every day, and
Mhm.
I think that that's where this whole space of mycology, and this is globally. I'm not just
Mhm.
saying from an
Yeah.
Indian context. I think globally, the ethos is that there's so much to still learn about this space. So I guess we're all still, still learning.
Figuring things out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, from my understanding, Nuvedo has been uh, having foraging walks as well. I've just read about it. So, how has that experience been? How are you able to differentiate between the poisonous and edible variants? What do you do on those walks?
Right, right. So, one of the best, like I said, one of the best ways to learn about mushrooms is to see them in the wild, and also, see them in nature. And we wanted people to start, becoming aware of them. Okay, growing one aspect, but seeing them in the natural environment, especially in urban ecosystems, because you think, oh, maybe mushrooms are perhaps like in the jungles or in the forest. So, we worked with experts, Hari Indian Toadstool. He has been spent a lot of time uh, identifying mushrooms on various groups. He's seen them in the natural ecosystem, and of course over time how identification works, it's, I guess, again a continuous learning process. But we there are different tools to identify them. For example, there are ways in which the gill, so suppose this is the mushroom cap and this is the stem, the ways in which the stem attaches to the cap, or the different ways in which the patterns of the gills are. So there are, for example, that's just like maybe one or two features or parameters that I've mentioned, but there are various ways to identify, and it's a full blown skill. Like, it's not, I mean, it's not a skill that I perhaps have, but we have people in our team who are also very, very adept at this. It requires a different kind of eye, it requires a different kind of practice. So it
Mhm.
requires not just seeing specimens that are around you, but also going on the internet and like studying them, looking at their morphology, understanding different sub classifications of it. So on walks, what we do is we educate people of the mushrooms that are available, I mean, or around, say in Carbon Park or in Lal Bagh,
Okay.
in Bangalore.
Mhm.
And we've done walks which are outstation, where we go with experts, and we have, like I said, this community of mycologists, and not mycologists, but like mycophiles, I want to call it, people who are crazy about mushrooms, is very strong. So there's always people who will come with us, or there are people who join the walks, and we're also there. So I think all said and done, it's not, I guess, it's a collective effort rather than just one person giving the knowledge. But the idea is that it's been very interesting, because a lot of people in the city have like changed their perspectives immensely. I've seen over the last 1.5 2 years that people have come back saying my lives have changed after this, because
Mhm.
they just didn't know that this was a part of nature, that it was not just looked at.
Correct.
Plants are always around, and they just never had the experience of it. So I've seen people transition from, I don't eat mushrooms are gross, to coming on our walks and then cultivating mushrooms, and now pretty into it, because they've also said that they're all like, I mean, these are all vegetarians also. They mentioned that they were able to get a lot of, their health became better, their quality of life. So I mean, this is one or two examples, I'm not generalizing, but
Mhm.
these are adults. But even with kids, right, we work with kids as well, and I think across age groups, it's a sense of wonder, because you're trying to look beneath the crevices of logs, or you have to like really crouch down and go underneath a rock,
Uh-huh.
or zoom into a very for example, when you zoom into that world, suppose this is a bark of a tree, you perhaps won't even notice that little mushroom which is hardly a centimeter long,
Mhm.
and you zoom into a world and you see it from that perspective. So I think there's a sense of wonder, there's a sense of awe, there's also a sense of eureka. When you find mushrooms, it's almost like a hunt, because they're always hiding, they're not like out there, you have to
Mhm.
actually search for. So the foraging walks are a mix of all these emotions, and that's what actually makes them very exciting and fun to
Oh,
do,
wow.
but also educational. And yeah, so we also do, so to complement this walk, to answer your question a little more deeper, is that we also do these online courses, like it's a master class
Mm-hmm.
where it equips you. It's about 4.5 to 5 hours long, in across 2 weekends, where people are equipped with all the tools that they require for identification. And
Mm-hmm.
we've seen a lot of people, naturalists, people come from various backgrounds to study about this, as because and this is just a beginner course.
Mm.
So there are ways that we also try to supplement that, the knowledge that we give on walks with, say, the theory that is required to actually be good at what it is.
Right.
So yeah.
Oh, nice. Like, of course, the emotions that you have expressed are something that takes you into a different world altogether. But
It is.
like, I had one small doubt based on a conversation that we've been having so far. You said that there's a particular environment that is created for the mushroom so that other fungi don't contaminate it. So when
Yeah.
you go foraging, isn't it possible, because it's in a natural environment, isn't it possible that the edible variants also have some kind of contamination, and then that can't be used for like we can't eat those variants? Is that the case? Not really.
So there's no thumb rule about that, because
Right.
for for example, where are you going foraging, right? Like if
Hmm.
you're going foraging in a jungle,
Hmm.
the chances of it actually growing in its right environment is high. First is that.
Right.
Second is, it would not fruit, or it would not survive if it was contaminated. If there
Oh,
was another organism that was competing for nutrition, it would perhaps not fruit. It would not come
right.
up to its, the fact that it has beaten the odds and survived through all of that, means that it is good. It's good to go, and there's nothing wrong with it. But having said that, again, the environment on where it grows is very important. For example, I would not recommend people eating mushrooms that are, say, in a public park, or perhaps there are thousands of people and dogs and a lot of things that you don't want to have access to, as opposed to having it in your backyard and growing them in a way that you can control. So
Correct.
edibility is a whole different like ball game when it comes to identification. One thing that we love to do as humans is that if we see something, we want to eat it. Now we can also just let it be there and exist as it is, but we want to eat it. So the entire like chapter of edibility has its own rules, and
Hmm.
there are certain like procedures. You can't just do that. So yeah, I mean, mushrooms grow for themselves. We eating it is a second part of it.
Got
But
it.
again, like I said, edibility, it depends on the place, it depends on how it's grown, all of that. And also, one, in the wild, unless you've correctly identified it, and by correctly identifying, I mean knowing that the species that is growing is the one that you're looking for, you
Right.
should not ever eat a mushroom that you don't identify. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We don't want an into the wild situation for sure.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. So, like do you think that there are any other species of fungi or any other vegetables that can be grown in controlled environments which you would like to expand into? Is that something you're looking at?
So, no more vegetables, but I think from a mushroom perspective, we're working with many kinds of mushrooms. So there are about 2,000 species of documented mushrooms, edible or medicinal, that can be grown, cultivated.
Mhm.
Currently, we're working with about, say, I want to say 15 to 20 of them,
Mhm.
but we have grow kits, only in a few species. But like I said, all these mushrooms are because you have to understand how they grow. It takes
Right.
time, they fruit, all of that. We are working with mushrooms, like, and why we're working with them is because, like I said, we're working on extracts.
Mhm.
And the reason we really are passionate about extracts is because that's perhaps the best way to consume the mushroom and get all its benefits.
Hmm.
Say, some person is allergic to something, or someone doesn't like the texture. Here you're getting the clean extract where you get all the benefits from the mushroom without actually having other issues that perhaps come with texture, taste. So we're working on this mushroom called the reishi mushroom. It's also
Mhm.
called Ganoderma lucidum, which is the herb of immortality in China. It has a huge, bunch of benefits in traditional Chinese medicine. Shiitake mushroom, turkey tail, and in the future, we hope to also work with this mushroom called cordyceps, but not right now. So
Okay.
in the pipeline, you can think of this. No vegetables,
Right.
just fungi, just mushrooms. But yeah.
Okay.
So
Nice. Interesting. So, any words of wisdom that you would like to pass on from your journey as an entrepreneur?
right. Words of wisdom. I don't know if I guess one thing could just be that uh, I guess don't be scared. I think it's the most basic thing that we're taught to be, cautious as kids, or, people telling you not to do certain things. So I think not being scared is where everything starts. The rest is just a manifestation of fear. And that's one thing. And the second thing perhaps could be, just to go at it, believe in your idea and believe that you have made the right decision on what you want to do, because and no one should tell you otherwise, because your thought process will create its own path, and you never know where that path may lead you. So don't, I mean, digressing and feeling like you're derailed because of certain things people say is perhaps the worst thing they can do to yourself, because it's also again instilling fear in you. So yeah, I mean, like I said, everything comes from that. Finally, it's just to not be scared, and just say it's okay. What's the worst that could happen? I'm not going to die, right? So it's
Yeah.
fine.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
nice. That's a beautiful thought. So I'm just going to come to the final question. This is a question that I ask everybody, and you've already broken the norms by getting into philosophy, but still. So, what does the phrase "being settled" mean to you?
Right. So I think being settled, firstly, is a construct that we created for
Mhm.
ourselves as humans, or as this, as our conditioning it has evolved. But if I had to answer it, I think it would just be to be at peace with yourself in the current moment,
Mhm.
and to know that whatever you have made a choice with, or whatever you are currently compelled to do, or are drawn to, is okay. And then I think being easy with yourself and always just saying that it's okay and it's calm, and this moment is all I have, and I know that right now I have made the right decision.
Yeah.
So I think that's for me being settled. It feels like it is moment to moment, and it is about just saying today is a good day. Today is, it is what it is, and I'm at peace with myself. So I think that to me is being settled. It isn't putting any words that we create, or first of all, maybe even if we're not, this word settled is even like a construct that we created. So I think just being at calm, at a complete sense of calm and ease with yourself, no matter what those things may be around you, um, is the most liberating way of being settled. So I think, yeah.
Yeah, nice. I'm definitely at peace today because I've learned so much about Nuvedo, about mushrooms, about all the benefits, and I've heard your story. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I had so much fun talking to you. Thank you for
Thank you
doing this
so
with
much,
me.
Amrita, for having me. It was wonderful. And I think you also brought out a lot of, like, like I said, I think you also took me through my own thought process. So it was really like wonderful to talk to you today. And I think, yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I would just like to tell the listeners, so they have a blog
Yeah,
and an FAQ also on their website, which I'll be adding the links. So just in case you have, like, we have not covered certain points, you can go through it and it's very well detailed, very well written. So you will be able to, know more about cultivation and mushrooms and whatnot. Also, I think we can add links to your workshops and everything so that people can get in touch with you.
absolutely. Absolutely. We do a
Yeah.
bunch of workshops. We have all the information out there on our blogs. We've got tons of information on the Instagram page as well. So feel free to explore and learn something new about mushrooms.
Done. We shall do so. Thank you. Thank you so much, Prithvi, for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you so much.